Hi, everybody. Joe Rousseau here, executive producer on the Star Trek Timelines project with Tilting Point. I am here joined by former lead narrative designer Jessica Sliwinski and the current lead narrative designer, Amber Tamosaitis. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Joe. It's been such a long time, but I'm always so happy to talk about Star Trek Timelines again. It's honestly, it's one of the happiest times of my career was working on Star Trek Timelines and everything else we did at Disruptor Beam and Tilting Point, all those games. So happy to talk about it.
Awesome. Let's jump into it, and Amber is going to hopefully provide a little extra context of Beyond's goings now, and interject with some really thoughtful questions of the times before. So, could you tell us a little bit about your time on the project, where it started, and how Star Trek Timelines came to be from your perspective?
Yes, getting your time machine, friends. It was a long time. Let's see. God, what year did we start working on this game? It was maybe around the second season of Game of Thrones, something not that long ago. And I was lead narrative designer at Disruptor Beam, which was the company that created Star Trek Timelines, before Tilting Point. And we had a great hit with Game of Thrones Ascent, but we were looking for what's the next one. And I don't know exactly how we ended up circling Star Trek for an idea, but when that first started getting talked about, everyone at the company was very excited because we had lots and lots of Trek fans. I've been watching Trek since I was little. I think my gateway one was Voyager, and then I watched Deep Space Nine and Next Generation and all of them eventually. But that sort of TNG Voyager DS9 was my entry into and the ones that have the most nostalgia for me. So when we learned we were going to try and do a Star Trek game, that was very exciting. And first it was a matter of like, can we do a Star Trek game? So it was a lot of talking to the licensors at that time. It was CBS, Paramount, and working all that out. And then once that seemed like, yeah, we think we want to work together, then we really started saying, okay, what kind of Star Trek game do we want to make? And we worked on a lot of different prototypes, paper prototypes, actual playable prototypes. We did all sorts of things. We tried out something that was similar to Game of Thrones Ascent, where it was sort of like you were managing a world, and we eventually decided we didn't want to do that. We also tried something that I actually liked for a little while. If anyone remembers it, sometimes I feel like I'm the only person who played it. The old Star Trek Next Generation called a Unity, or a Final Unity. That's what it was called. It was a PC game where you were on Enterprise, Picard's Enterprise, and you went on a bunch of different missions. And it was very point and click, but it also had a bunch of like different mini games based on like the nature of the mission, like whether it was diplomatic or fighting or whatnot. And so our version of Star Trek Timelines at that time was similar to that. It had like a bunch of different mini games that you'd enter into for whatever kind of mission it was. And that was interesting, but we ended up, moving away from it because it would have just been insane in scope, right? We wouldn't have been building one game, we would have been building like 10 games. And that just wasn't gonna work. So we came back to, just talking about like all our different treks and all our different favorite characters and just having friendly debates about who is the best captain and how would this person react to this person who only appeared on this other show. And that's kind of, as I remember, how we started moving towards what Star Trek Timelines is now. What would it be like if all of these characters that you see on completely different shows who haven't interacted in actual Trek, what if they could? What if you could build your dream crew of this captain with this first officer and this security officer and Loxana Troy for some reason? So we were like, okay, this sounds really exciting. Then we really got to work. That sort of screamed that sort of really just screamed what the gameplay loop should be, right? Character collector, because you want to get everybody. We started working on the framing, like, well, what has happened that all of these people are in the same timeline, able to interact with each other. And, built up a pitch deck and took it back to CBS Paramount, and they were like, we love it, let's do it. And yeah, so we were really off to the races from there. And one thing that was really exciting early on, and I'm sure you guys have featured this many times, was our early partnership with John Delancey, the voice of Q. We knew when we started developing the framing, we knew Q was involved in that, so we knew we were going to want him at any rate, just for his voice and his acting. But when we started having conversations with him, he expressed an interest to get more deeply involved in Star Trek Timelines, beyond just being an actor. He really wanted to be involved in helping to develop the story here, to understand better just the nature of game design and game development. And because he was coming at it primarily through the entry point of story, that meant that he and I just worked closely together a lot to develop the story, and that was such an honor and really meaningful for me. I learned a lot from him too, about storytelling, about Q. Nobody knows Q better than Q, right? Like you think Q, from watching the show, but when you talk to the man who plays him, who tells you why he made the acting choices he did, how he thinks Q thinks, you just unlock this whole new understanding of a character that you never had before, and that was such a joy and so helpful to have him partner with us in that way. Yeah, it just so much awesome work from everybody to develop that game. The art, we knew the art was like part of the game, basically, because that's what you're collecting, the character. That's your representation of it. And I think we came up with a really awesome art style that clearly people still love even now, and really made the game, just all these characters come alive and feel like they really embodied who they're supposed to be. Even if it's every different version of a character, like, embodies them in that moment, and that was really cool.
Yeah. Let me interject here.
Yeah, please do.
So John Delancey's been an incredible partner, continues to be. He should be providing. Actually, he's provided us a bunch of extra VO throughout the years, and we'll be putting together. So definitely continued that relationship with him. And but I want to cut back to sort of the idea of when, like, the idea someone says, like, oh, I want all my favorite characters in one place. How did you come to the sort of narrative decision of, making it about these star, celestial, anomalies, and then also eventually integrating it directly into sort of the Q continuum and all that other stuff? Like, was that something that was there at its inception that you wanted to reveal, or was that something that, like, kind of developed more organically as you continue telling the story week in, week out with the events and the characters that you had?
Yeah, so the idea of temporal anomalies being responsible was always there from the start. Authenticity was always something that was very important to us, was a pillar of Disruptor Beam, and now I'm sure Tilting Point, and all of our games. We really wanted people to feel that we understood this world, we respected this world, we knew this world, we did something that fit perfectly within this world. And all our research into Star Trek, all our own experience with Star Trek, temporal anomaly, it's there. It's been used to great effect before. It just seemed like the perfect, starting point for what is bringing all these people together. In terms of the expanded story, without spoiling people if they haven't gotten there yet, maybe they surely have at this point, but they haven't. Expanding it to the story of the Q continuum, that's really where John John Delancey had a lot of input, because he too is very interested in, like, Q pops up usually as a master of ceremonies, causes some trouble, and then leaves. But he was very interested in, like, well, why is Q popping up here as opposed to Q's just fun to have pop up? Like, what is his reason? Why is he involved here? And we really just built out like a very intricate story from that question, and went into the history of the Q continuum and how it worked, and some deep philosophical things, like Plato's cave and all of that. And yeah, so that's really, I give a lot of credit to John there for how we built it out towards the Q continuum, and we just planned it very carefully, thinking about it like, maybe this year all of this kind of story will come out, and this year all of this kind of story will come out, and we tried to think about a really epic tale that we could tell, hoping, and back then we could not have conceived that Star Trek is gonna still be here, which is amazing.
Yeah.
We just hoped that it would, and with the best hopes and prayers, we were like, let's say we're here 10 years later. What chapter of this story is going to be there? And I'm so happy and thankful that we are there, and we're still telling that story. That's amazing and wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Amber.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to ask you about, I guess, to expand upon that, and about especially the episode content, like how you guys plan that early on. How, did you plan episode by episode, or did you have longer arcs in mind? How did that process go for you, especially early on?
Yeah, we did plan episode by episode, and the concept of factions was important at the time in Star Trek timelines, because all of our thought was all of these temporal anomalies were gonna, as much as they gave you the joy of being able to pull all these characters together, they were also naturally going to cause a lot of problems, right? And so we were like, well, what are the most interesting stories we can tell, the most exciting and scary problems that these temporal anomalies can introduce, and how can we fit that into the idea of two factions that end up warring against each other. And that's kind of how we structured each of the early episodes. We thought up who is going to be opposing who and why, and what is an interesting conflict for them to have as a result of these temporal anomalies. And then as we were telling those stories, we thought, well, as we're doing this, we'll also keep dropping little more of the overall story, like, why did this happen in the first place, and are you ever going to get those answers? Because what we envisioned was sort of, you will sort of clean up the immediate mess. And once you have cleaned up the immediate mess, this will keep causing problems. But once you've sort of gotten the big problems resolved, you can then start to dig more into, okay, what do I think about this bigger mystery? How can I solve that? And that was great fun. We had, that's a lot of content to do for launch, and we had a whole team of contract writers who helped us to get all that ready, to write all those episodes and shuttle missions and everything. So shout out and great thanks to them too, with all the hard work they did on all the launch content. And then beyond, obviously, Amber, yourself, you've written a metric ton of things. Star Trek timelines at this point, and we've had some other contractors over the years too who've dropped in and done some more stuff. So yeah, just shout out to all of them, everyone who's contributed to Star Trek timelines narratively over the years. Thank you.
Well, you made it very easy, Jessica. Like, coming into the project was an absolute joy, and your guidance was fantastic. And you had the game set. Like, when I came on board, it was, you know what I mean? It was walking into a world that was established and built, and the rules were established. And as especially a contract writer coming into that kind of position, it helps so much. You know what I mean? You know what the expectations are, what the players' expectations are, the lore, you know what I mean? That just, I can't express how much that helps. So I have to give you and all the early writers so much credit, because you guys really built a solid foundation. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, really, when you're trying to set that foundation, you're trying to build it so it can be expanded, right? Like, you're trying to build something that is defined, but it's defined in a way that encourages you to keep redefining it and making it bigger and making it better. So the fact that it seems we were able to do that, because here we are. Yeah, thank you for continuing to keep it going.
Awesome. Yeah, and I just want to remark on the sort of ability to plan to that depth as well. Like again, most mobile titles launch and they're gone within a year. That's the average lifespan is not long for most titles, and to have the guts to just kind of like hold this like card and be like, yeah, it's all dismantling to this one thing, but like we'll figure it out, like keep the mystery alive. But like again, like you build to that faithfully rather than oh, it could be anything, and then you decide 5 years later that it's this other thing, and maybe that's not as satisfying without the hints and everything else that's dropped throughout the thing. I'd like to move to, so we kind of talked about the main storyline a bit. What were some of your favorite sort of weekly stories or monthly stories that were introduced through the event system that you've created?
I really loved once we started moving to the concept of we were telling a story over the course of 4 events over a month, basically. Not that it wasn't fun and telling engaging stories when it was sort of every week was a one-off, but once we kind of had that concept established, that really opened up so many possibilities for us in telling longer, more intricate stories that maybe couldn't be told in like a single event in a single week. And one that always comes to mind was Spocktober. Not just because of the pun Spocktober, not just because of that amazing graphic. I remember, I think you made, Joe, where his spacesuit head looked like a pumpkin, and you put it in the perfect spot of Spocktober. But also because that one was just really fun to write, because it was all about Spock, and it was all about like if his life had turned out differently, and if he'd made different choices, and that's a really in-depth, character heavy story that is almost kind of impossible to tell in a single week, a single event, so to have the room to do something that interesting was really awesome. So I love that we eventually developed the event system to that point that allowed us to tell the longer stories, and I think our players, our fans really liked it too. Not that it's all about numbers, but when we look at the numbers, they reflected that people were really liking the longer form, more epic events.
We try to do as many as we can. I think we do about half dozen a year now. I think maybe
awesome.
We're doing them quarterly originally, or we might even start it as we did it once and we're like, all right, how do we figure out how to do this again? But yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned Spocktober, and it's such a cheeky, silly name for something that you're like, oh, that was like really introspective about really thinking about like what if Spock, didn't,
right.
Like ended up the way he ended up, and that's such a fascinating question to ask, like what if, right? Like what if this, or what if this person wasn't here, what would happen? To mention one of the ones that I remember where we had player choice in the outcome of the event narrative. This didn't affect the game event stuff. I think it was like Christmas of 2017 or 2018, where we had to choose between like saving Merry Men Wharf or Beowulf Harry Kim, and we just killed Harry Kim on Christmas. I was just like, Jesus.
Poor Harry Kim. Yes, those were great fun too. Once we had that concept of pick a character to it didn't affect the event, but I think it affected like which character was available or something.
First,
I think which character was available first. I remember I did one. I forget the context now, but I remember I did one where you had to pick between like Loxana and Wesley and Neil.
Everyone's favorite.
I don't know. No, I do. I actually like all those characters, but I know a lot of people have different feelings about them, so that was a fun choice to give me.
What about you, Amber?
Favorite character or favorite event plotline?
Yeah, like event plot line. Like, what was a memorable one for you that you either experienced or wrote or both?
Okay, I have to tell a story first.
Tell the
Okay.
story, please.
I don't know if Jessica remembers this.
I probably don't right now, but if you tell it, I might. That's how my brain works now. If you remind me, I sometimes remember.
The first event that I got to write was the Honor of Andoria. And I went through and did all the onboarding with Jessica. Like, I'd been playing STT for a couple of months at this point, but I guess somewhere along the way I didn't realize that the faction events don't deploy like sequentially. So when I went and I submitted all my faction events to Jessica, they were like a sequence of events. Like, oh, your shuttle team is gonna do this, and now it's gonna do that. And she had to come back and be like, "We don't have control. They deploy like." They deploy randomly. So I went back and rewrote it, but it just cracked me up because I had come in and I had this whole like caper idea.
I think is that the one with it featured Shran? Is that right? It was a whole Andorian thingy.
Yeah, Tara was in it. It was part of a mega. I think it was like the second or third event in the mega.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm remembering this now. Yeah. It's coming back slowly. Yeah. No. Yeah. That I remember you having a lot of fun with that Andorian one. You wrote more of it, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, I really enjoyed that one, but I thought it was so funny because I was a baby writer. I was like, yes, I have this.
Oh no, everybody does. I mean, I hope to our players, Star Trek Timelines looks effortless as if it just floated down on a cloud from but it is complex behind the scenes, so yeah, it's all like that. I remember the first time we were setting up the oh my gosh, the name flew out of my head. Is it Voyages? Is that the name of the feature?
Yep, Voyages.
Oh yeah,
Voyages. Yes, Voyages. When we were doing the Voyages feature, because a lot of the writing of it involved having to input character names and places and whatnot in a preformed sentence and making sure it would all flow together, based on how the log came out.
Right.
That one, I think I did. I at least wrote the prototypes of it, and that one, that took me a while. I kept doing it wrong, and I was like, "This is not working. Why can't I make this work?"
But I think that's also why I enjoyed working with you so much, because you know what I mean? You helped me not only giving me that advice, but you guided me and like, even though I had played it and I had played through faction events and I knew what they look like from the player facing side, you gave me a lot of guidance and this is kind of what we're looking for when they randomly deploy. And that really helped kind of ease me into the whole experience. But for that reason, like Honor of Andoria, I still, think back fondly on that experience. And just that whole getting started phase was very exciting. But, you're a fan coming into a project like this, and I'm like, oh man, I want to do right by these characters and the players. So
yeah, I really didn't have to do much, Amber. You're just so talented. Like I just kind of just had to get out of your way. I will tell the players should know, like when we were hiring around the time we hired you, Amber, I think I've told you this. If I haven't, you're about to hear it. We were blessed to have a lot of applicants who were interested in working on Star Trek Timelines. And Amber, you had written a cover letter that was just such a cover letter. I still think about that. It was such a good cover letter. Like you just your passion and your joy and your enthusiasm and your knowledge of Star Trek, like you got it all in like I think like 3 paragraphs. It's like it was just like screaming out of the screen at me, and I was like, I've never met this person or read anything they've written, but like this cover letter is like screaming at me.
Thank
And
you.
we went through an actual process. We interviewed you and had you tests and everything, but just that a very first thing I read of your cover letter, like it was just, it felt like meant to be.
Thank you.
You should know that. If I didn't, I feel like I've told you this story, but if I haven't, now I have.
That means a lot. And I feel like we had a lot of really good experiences. Like that first phase where we were working together, and I really enjoyed that time period, and a lot of the events that we did together, like the Mir Loaxana event was a lot of fun, and
Oh yeah, that one was good too.
a lot of
It's
the
so
negas.
it's so funny. Like I remember when I was a baby writer back in the Stone Age, uh, I would talk to like my mentors and superiors, and they'd be like, "I wrote that? I don't remember that. Was that it?" And I was thinking like, "How could you ever forget something you wrote?" And it's just like, and like now that I'm an old woman, I remember, I can't remember so many things, and then I remember like, "Oh yeah, that's great." And so I now understand how you can sometimes forget even things you loved writing just because game development is complex, so there's lots of moving parts, and but when someone jogs your memory, you're like, oh yes, that was great.
I have
When you write as many words as you both have, it's I'm sure you're gonna lose a couple.
Yeah.
It's just inevitable.
I have a question for you.
Good, go for it, Amber.
Oh, sorry. How is especially in the beginning, like how was writing for timelines? Because you've done a lot of mobile narrative design. So how was the process of like setting up the timelines narrative and then going into like events and stuff like that? Like how's that different from other mobile projects you've worked on?
Yeah, so from a very technical and tools standpoint, we came a very long way from the early days. In the early days, I had to write basically, I'll try not to get too detailed here because your listeners might fall asleep, but I had to write in almost a kind of code. I had to put everything into a file format called YAML, YAML, and we didn't have a tool for doing that, so I just had to do it. And it wasn't very accessible, especially for any contractors who wanted to bring us. You basically had to teach them like, please write in this semi-code type of way. And then eventually, we developed a way to work in Excel and transferred over there. So then it got a little bit more friendly. And even so, though, it was still sort of a process, and it took time, but it was a process that worked. So we just kind of ate the time that it took. And then we developed an actual tool, and that's when we really went off to the races because the tool was so user friendly, and anybody could pick it up. In a day. It didn't require foreknowledge or anything. So that was a big thing that developed over the years that I was on the project. Just the technology of creating content for Star Trek Timelines got a lot easier. And but in terms of like planning the content, I think one thing that kind of blows my mind to think of, and I don't even know if all the players know this at this point, we launched without events. Like events weren't a thing. Like for God, I don't even remember, when did we introduce them? It was at least a couple months after launch, I think, if not longer than that.
It might have been the fall of that year. I think
Yeah,
remember it was Time Amok, I think, was the first one with the LFP Spock
right.
Kirk.
It was, yeah. With the
yeah.
Yeah. So that always blows my mind, that what became sort of like the engine of Star Trek Timelines, the event system, we didn't even launch with it.
Yeah.
And we kind of and I think it was, launching a game is such an endeavor, and I think once we launched the game and we had the finished thing and we could see people playing it, that's when we finally got the holistic view, and we could see like, okay, this needs events, and that's when like, the light bulbs went on, and that's when we could develop that feature. So yeah, that was definitely you know, a change too, where you know, all through launch we were sort of planning for this more linear sort of, static's not the greatest word, but more so static, not as dynamic, let's say, as the event system. We were sort of planning for this idea where we'd drop like a new episode every couple months, and then people would go through it, and then they'd wait for the next one. And then once we, though, developed the event system, that's when we started to think about these things, you know, in relation to each other, in tandem with each other. How do they affect each other? How do they affect pacing as the player moves through the game? What kinds of stories are more appropriate for an episode? What kinds of stories are more appropriate for an event? And that's when it got really interesting, and sort of changed how we were thinking about the narrative design and the storytelling, when we sort of had more paintbrushes and palettes to work with, as opposed to the one that we kind of had at launch. Yeah.
I feel like I'm going like more and more. We started like the big story, the little stories. What were some examples of you know, crew are the, I will say, like the building blocks of the game that everybody loves to collect? Was there any particular crew conversations you remember having, or crew that made their way into the game that was your favorite? I can think of one that I know that you pushed for, but I'm curious.
I don't know.
Unadulterated by
I'll say it. I'll say what I think you're thinking. It might be a different one though. I remember I was obsessed for the longest time with getting pineapple. Is that the one? Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking of.
The orange shirt Voyager guys, because I just remembered that episode so well, and I thought they were just such fun looks, and I kept trying to come up with a reason, an event to like have pineapple. Sometimes I was forcing it, but like I think pineapple fair.
I think Luau Paris was introduced with the Convergence Day event. I think that was one of the ones.
Yeah. They're finally like, all right, Jess, you can have that. But no, I love. Yeah, that was great. I'm gonna duck for a minute and just get my book and try to remember who else I loved in this book. Yeah, there was Luau guys. I really liked the Amok Time guys. I wanted like every single outfit Q ever wore.
We keep adding them.
Which we must have at this point. Yeah, I loved that one. Anytime anybody went to the holodeck, like I wanted every time somebody went to the holodeck, I wanted all of those outfits. I wanted anytime they played sports, like when Troy and Beverly would do their aerobics randomly. I wanted that. I wanted any time that they would pose as either pose as or were somehow transformed into different races. Like I wanted oh god, I'm gonna lose my trick cred here in a second. It starts with an M. Mintakan, yes, the Mintakan Riker and Troy. Yeah, every time or when Troy was a Romulan, and anytime anybody posed as a different race, I wanted them really bad. Yeah. So that was always sort of the ones that I wanted to collect the most. Anytime someone was dressed or acting differently than their normal appearances are always very interesting to me.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because like you're coming in from this perspective of like, oh, I just want to hold this thing, like I just want this thing, rather than like, oh, there's this really compelling story I want to tell with Luau Paris. You're like, no, I just want the guy in his shirt.
I'll come up with the story later. Pineapple. I'll come up with a reason for him to hold it, but I need him first, and then I'll do it.
You're like, give me my action figures, give me my dolls, then we'll figure it out.
I mean, it's a collaborative effort, right? Like we need to consider these characters not just from the standpoint of, can I tell an interesting story with them, or is this the one I need for my story? But also functionally, how useful they are to the player. Like, is there a balance between these characters we're offering you? And so, and it still is, I'm sure, we'd collaborate to determine like, okay, here, what's the pool of characters that you have to play with. And then from that pool, I as a writer, I look at this pool and I pick out, ooh, these ones with these ones, ooh, that could be interesting, and how could these two clash or get along, and what kind of story can I tell here? Yeah, naturally, I think for a CCRPG, it starts with the characters, and then from there, story emerges. Was kind of how we always approach it.
Yeah, I think that challenge is continuing, especially with the breadth of crew we have. We're approaching 2,000 crew. I think we'll hit it in 2026.
Amazing.
I
remember when we hit 100.
Yeah, and just the corners of the IP that you have to kind of mine for new things, right?
Well, I mean, the good news is there seems to always be more Trek around the corner, right?
We've been very fortunate.
Discoveries, Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks. Now Starfleet Academy's coming. It's going to be
Yeah, but 2016 we didn't have that, right? So it's interesting that we made it.
We made it.
Amber, what about yourself? Favorite crew, if you had to pick one, or
I think you know my answer to this question.
Which version of him now?
So, Jessica, did you get to watch Strange New World season 1?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you remember Hemmer?
Say the name again.
Hemmer?
Yes.
The engineer? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he was my favorite character.
Oh, nice.
I was so upset with what happened to him across the season. And so I think he might have been, I think Pike was maybe our first Strange New Worlds crew, but Hemmer was not far behind.
Was it the same as me? You're like, I just need him first, and then I'll come up with a reason later. Just give him to me.
I had to kind of start putting a cap on myself because we needed to get other Strange New Worlds.
So that reminds me of a story from launch content. I had two contract writers, Randy and John, and they fantastic writers. They were doing a lot of episodes, and then they were doing shuttle missions and whatnot. And separately, without coordinating or anything, at least as far as I know, like a couple weeks in a row, they both kept sending me pitches for Morn mission, and Morn kept coming up over and over. And I said to them, I was like, "You guys really like Morn? Why do you guys like Morn so much?" Because they just kept sending me Morn things, and they both gave me genuine, impassioned answers as to why they both really liked Morn. And I was like, just so you know, other guys also really like Morn. And he was like, oh yeah, he does too. And like, how did I? And they both really like Morn. And I think we put I think we have a couple of Morn ones in there, but it was just funny that they both happened to really like Morn and kept showing me I wanted to do Morn stuff at the same time.
I don't know if you remember this, Jessica, because again, this is going back several years, but there was a period where I don't know why I was on a Deep Space Nine kick. Yeah. And I think I sent you 3 back-to-back pitches with Garrick in them somewhere.
Oh, I do remember that.
And I don't know why. I guess I was too close to it, but you finally came back and you were like, okay, we have to stop over indexing on Garrick. And it was just, I was on such a Deep Space Nine kick, but it's just funny how we get so into the shows and we get into the characters that it's like, wait a second.
I think if I remember it, we did end up using them. We just spread them out.
Yeah, I think we moved them around.
We can't do Garrick month. We need to. I mean, we could, but we need to spread them out a little bit. We'll do this one in a couple months, and then we'll do this one in a couple.
I want to be mindful of time, of your time, but I do have a couple more questions. Yeah. First,
I'm good to go until 2:30.
2:30. Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah. In that case, let's get into it.
Yeah.
So when you write, and this is comments we've gotten from our players, this is comments, and this is stuff that I see myself. When you're writing the particular voices of the character, and you mentioned working with John Delancey and getting inside the head of Q specifically, but as people read and experience the narrative, how is it, or what was your process to get into the voice of a Worf or a Cisco or an Archer to kind of emulate, because it's like we're building new stories, new dialogue for them compared to their appearances on the shows previously. So what was the process like? And like, is there any like tricks to like becoming that thing for I'm going to stop talking. You answer the question.
Oh, I totally get what you're asking.
Yeah.
And not just Star Trek Timelines, any licensed game or anything that's based on an existing world. For me, it's all about research, right? Like if you're writing a character that has a particular voice, or if you're not even if you do feel like you're sure of the voice, it's always good to you go and pull up clips and watch that character, kind of get a sense of like their pacing, their rhythm, their word choice, how they construct their sentences, how they typically react to things. Another really helpful thing I did early on was I read all of the compendiums and making of a book of the various series, because those were all written by the writers and the crew of the shows. So that was really helpful in understanding how the original writers thought about these characters that they created and why they did the things they did and whatnot. And that really helped too in trying to get into the brains of these characters. And also, like, it also helped to understand times where maybe the characters seemed inconsistent in certain ways, but I think that's natural of any long-term television series. Like, characters develop, right? Or an actor makes a choice, or audience reacts a certain way, and you pivot a little based on this new data or something really useful that you've learned. And that was all really good information to have too, to just sort of understand, because I think sometimes when people are coming at licensed properties, there is a danger of wanting to do something the way you want to do it and latching on to like an example from the show to like support your case, even if it's like an outlier or it's maybe not consistent with the way the character was. Like, you want to fight for his job, like, well, in episode 7 of season 2 he did it that one time, so therefore he can do it this one time. And that can be dangerous. So it's better to always try and get that holistic view of the character and sort of understand try as much as you can without having been a person who was actually there and working on the show. Understand how the character developed and why. Yeah, that's sort of always how I approached it. And the more you write a character and the more people respond positively, letting you know, like, yeah, this character felt like this character, the more confident you get in writing that character, and they start to feel a little bit more second nature to you. Practice makes perfect, like everything.
So there's no trick. There's just, you need to work hard and research and work at it and do it over and over again until you get good at it.
That's I mean, it's that, yeah.
How discouraging.
No, I mean, it isn't though. I don't think, like, that's the answer to literally anything you want to be good at. And now I'm going to get outside of Star Trek and very philosophical with you, but like, that's the answer. It's a very simple answer. Just, if you want to get better at something, you just have to work at it. And I think some people don't like that answer. They just want it now. They want the machine to do it. I won't get too go off on my soapbox there too much, but the journey is really what you're after, as opposed to the result, right? Like, it is not as valuable to get like a pitch perfect Riker line as it is for me to learn what makes a pitch perfect Riker line. That's the knowledge that helps me do 1,000 more Riker lines. That's the knowledge that helps anybody I hire do the lines right. That's the knowledge that allows me to just develop things. It's not, and I'm sure Picard said something along these lines at some point, that it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But yeah, so that's really the secret, as it is. And it's a scary answer, but it's also a freeing answer, because it's something anyone can do. There's nobody stopping you from doing the work to do whatever you want to do. You just got to be willing to do the work.
No, that's a great piece of advice. I didn't mean to make light of it. I was just trying to
Totally.
make a joke.
You don't want me to get up on my AI soapbox. Be a downer, but
all right. Let's move on to just memories working on the project. I know you guys mentioned a few working together, which I think is great, but is there any particular stories or time that you want to share, having worked on the project through all the years? You've both been supporting it for years, which is incredible.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the times that we got to meet fans and demo the game to them. I remember we went to the Star Trek Vegas one year. I don't think that's the official name. It's not Star Trek Vegas, is it?
Star Trek Las Vegas?
Yeah, is that the official name? I can't remember. But
the convention, I think, has changed names multiple times.
Yeah.
With different owners,
Well,
so
people know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
the official Star Trek convention in Vegas. And we got to set up our booth, and we got to meet so many players. And what was amazing was, like, we had players coming up, like, and you could argue they were also dressed up like the show, because obviously all our characters were pulled from the show, but they would come up and, like, pose like our art was posed, right? Like, and you knew, like, they were dressing up like specifically the one from our game. And that was amazing. I remember we kind of had, like, a meta character collecting thing at that event, where, like, we made buttons of all the captains, and we only gave one away per day, and you had to come every day if you wanted to collect them all. And the attendees, the players, got really into it. Like, they every day, like, give my button. And if you ran out, they were like, oh, and they were really upset. And not that I'm happy that they were upset, but it was just gratifying that this thing, like, they all got so into it. And it was, like, a reflection on, like, the positively addicting part of our game, that you want all the characters. So that was really cool. I also it just flew right out of my head what I was going to say, but yeah, I loved that convention. I loved all the weekends Don Delancey and I spent on the phone, because that was usually when he was free, because he's a busy man, with his own schedule, and lots of appearances and jobs. And we would spend Saturday mornings and afternoons on the phone working out the story. And that was really fun. I also remember, I think I held it up before, I loved making this book that we gave to all the developers as a Christmas present one year. I have never made a book before. I love reading books, but I've never written a book or been involved in printing a book. And so that was a really fun experience. And at some point, one of these books turned up for sale somewhere, and I was listed as the author of the book, and that was fun, because I was the only way I wrote the book is if you go to the end of the book and you read the little acknowledgement section. So I was like, somebody read the acknowledgement section and knows that I read. Yeah, oh, really good. So these two examples I've mentioned don't have, I guess, much to do with the game itself, rather than, like, things that came out of the game, but they were very memorable things. I also really liked that we made the game. That was just fun that we did that. Like, that we went that far with it and actually made it, like, real and playable, and it looked exactly like the real thing. And it was just, like, I feel like the opportunities you get to do that are very rare in game development. Like, that you get to go off and just do this thing that's, like, really just for fun and player enjoyment. Like, there's no there's no metric attached to it or anything, and that was just really fun to do. Not that I had terrible much involvement in it, there's no words in the game, but it's fun to like help support that, and that it happened. Those are sort of 3, 4, however many I said.
Yeah, no, I think remarking on just getting the game out, right, is we talked about how most games that launch don't survive their first year in a lot of spaces for live ops supported games. But then there's also the below the iceberg ones you never see because they never came out at all. So it's definitely remarkable to be celebrating 10 years and talking about it. And at all. It's a small miracle.
I've had the honor and pleasure of working on a lot of games at this point, and only 2 of them are still alive. And Star Trek Timelines is one of them, and you love all your children, but Star Trek Timelines is one of my favorite children. It's the fact that that's one of the ones that's still going. It makes me very happy.
Awesome. Amber, anything else to share for memories or times and continuing working on the project? But anything you'd like to share?
I think it just it's such a joy to work on any game, like Jessica said, seeing any game that's when I came on to Timelines, it was already and it was a couple years into production and everything. But I think not only getting to work on a game in a game that is live and current, and you get that pretty immediate feedback. You write something and then a couple of months down the line it's out in the public and you get to see the feedback. But I think getting to work on something that you're an existing fan of and getting to work with other people that are fans, like when Jessica did my interview and I was telling her my story, how I got into Trek, and she relayed her story earlier in this phone call. I was so excited. Like that was up to that point I didn't when I applied for this job, I was afraid to let myself see myself in that position because I was like, it's Star Trek. There's no way this is not going to happen. And I just basically wouldn't let myself get attached to the idea. But that moment, I think, between doing my writing sample, because I was like, oh my gosh, I could see myself, doing this. This is so fun. I don't want to miss out on this. And then having the interview with Jessica, and she was telling me about her experience watching Voyager growing up. And I just felt like, these are my people, these are fellow fans. And that's been the experience ever since I came onto the project. And, I was a contractor prior to Star Trek Timelines, but it can be very much like working in a bubble and working in a vacuum. And even if the other people on the project are into, whatever you're working on at the time, without that connection, it can be very isolating. And so this experience and just the energy, whether it was at Disruptor Beam or Wicked Realm Games or Tilting Point, the through line is the passion of everybody that works on this project. And the through line is the passion of the fans, like going into the forums and even if there's things that the fans are concerned about, even if it's the hard stuff, like just seeing the passion for the game and the passion for Star Trek and seeing people post memes or, talk about, what's going on in Strange New Worlds this week or Lower Decks. Did you catch that Easter egg? And then coming into a content planning meeting and having the same conversations, or having those conversations where we're debating about traits and should this character really have this trait. Like it might seem so small to other people, but to me it's a joy, like to get to do that and to do that for a job. As it feels unreal and I feel incredibly grateful, and I just it's just been an amazing experience. I will say I don't know if I should say this, but I will say this. I think maybe one of my favorite experiences at this point is I got memed on in the Star Trek forums at one point because somehow I think I was just very tired. I blended Admiral Forrest and Malcolm Reed into one character. So we had Malcolm Forrest So he and they put him as a meme in the forums, and I just was laughing so hard. So every now and then I stick Malcolm Forrest in as a Easter egg into the game if I can.
That's amazing. I love that. I mean, so well said, everything before that, but that you got that. That's awesome.
I
We need
have that
Malcolm
meme
Forest
saved.
fuse, like Tuvix, right? Like
Yeah. Oh, that's what you guys can do when if you run out of character, if you're waiting for a new series, let's start the fusion, and then just for a year we'll just be fusing people together, and we'll just be making new Tuvix, just everything. We could do it.
yeah, we can do a lot of
I
things.
say we like I can be in there, but free idea from me to you guys.
Right, thank you.
Just the year of Tuvix, the year of Transporter Accident.
I think we did revisit Tuvix again with
Yes.
Amber. With was Janeway wrong to separate them? Like we made like an event where we were asking that question, and the players overwhelmingly were like, "Yes, like she murdered Tuvix." Like, so I don't know. It's interesting because they're like, I can see like the argument, and then you're like, no.
I mean, I think the fact that she murdered Tuvix is true no matter what. It's just can't be disputed. That's literally what she did. But the it's just the argument of, was it worth it to murder Tuvix to get two men back, or was it not worth it? That's the real question. There's no debate. She murdered Tuvix. She did, but was it okay to murder him? Is it not okay? It's the question.
I feel like when I see people have that debate, pretty much everybody is on board with bringing Tuvok back, but I feel like your answer depends heavily on how you feel about Neelix. Poor Neelix.
You know what I feel like? I feel like this is such a, now we're off on the Tuvix topic. We can move on in a minute, but I think it's such a testament to that actor and the whole concept of Tuvix that like it was such a genuinely like great character that like took all sort of the best qualities of these two people who on their own can be prickly for different reasons. But this person was like the best of them, and you just fell in love with them immediately. And I mean, I think like it had to be that way because otherwise you wouldn't have cared. You would have been like, yeah, get rid of him, bring the other. But that's I think what makes it such an awesome episode in debate, because this new person was arguably a person you maybe wanted to be friends with more than either Neelix or I got to get rid of this awesome guy and bring back these two guys who are, they're okay, but they're not great as this one guy, you know. Anyway, I go on about Tuvix forever, so we can stop.
Amazing. The year of Tuvix. That's 2027.
You don't have to pay me or anything.
First and foremost, I just want to thank you both for your time today and just all that you've poured into this project, past and present. The passion is clear and it shows. For the last thing, is there anything that you would like to say to the players? And I'll start with you, Jess.
You know, I guess it all gets summed up as thank you. Like, thank you for playing, whether you started, you know, at launch or you just started, you know, a week ago. You know, thank you for playing our little game. I always think of it as a little game, even though it's not so little anymore. It's so rewarding that people connect with what we wanted to do. They connect with our love of Star Trek. They see our love of Star Trek, and that they're still having fun with it all this time later. That's just, you can't ask for anything more as a creative. You can't ask for anything more as a professional. Like it's just such a light to know that people are still loving Star Trek Timeline. So thank you, absolutely. And I hope that you will seek out other authentic experiences in gaming. You know, look to the passion of the developers, and you know, that's what everybody, we're all trying to do at all times, right? Like we're in games because we love games, then we want to make great games for you. So thank you for your support and the support you show any game you love. Thank you.
Awesome. Well said. Amber?
Yeah, definitely. Well said. I guess just two things. One, I want to say thank you to Jessica. You were the one who brought me on this project, and I learned so much from you in the year and a half that we worked together. You made me a better writer, and I just really enjoyed my time working with you. So I really wanted to say thank you. And then I want to say thank you to Joe as well, for putting up with me. Many weird crew requests, because a lot of the times I will ping Joe and be like, "Hey Joe, what do you think about this idea?" And he, to his credit, will listen to even my craziest ideas. So you were
At least it's not Pineapple Paris.
that's what makes it a joy to work on this project is, from working with you, Jessica, and working with Joe and working with everybody that I've worked with, this is just a team that we can have fun even while we're being productive. And I think that translates to my final point, which is, as Jessica said, thank you to everybody that plays the game. You're the reason that we're here. I feel so lucky that I get to be a part of this, little slice of the Trek universe and get to tell these stories. But they're stories that exist not only because of the team, but because of you, the players. Like, you guys are the lifeblood of the Timelines universe. It's kind of like we all came through on our own temporal anomalies, and somehow we've merged, and here, we're all in the same little piece of time together. And I'm just so grateful for it. I'm so grateful to see the player chatter. I'm so grateful to see what you guys do with the stories that we create. And, you create your own adventures, you create your own fleets, you create your own crews, and, you are the lifeblood of the Trek universe. So I just want to say thank you to y'all for giving us, your time, and it means a lot, and live long and prosper.
Thanks so much. Incredibly put. And yeah, I can only but remark how lucky that the players and the project has been to have both of y'all sort of stewardship on the project for the story and the characters and everything else. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, let's get to it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Joe. I hope we can do this again in another 10 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's do it.